The webinar is a collaborative activity of the Africa Union Development Agency, AUDA NEPA, with Grow Africa and the International Institute of Tropical Agriculture, IITA, and TAT, the Technologies for African Agricultural Transformation. The webinar is also supported by FARA, by AATF, Development and by CORAF. Let me thank you for registering to participate in this webinar and going beyond that to actually show up to be at the table this particular afternoon. My name is Kwesi Atakra. I am Director for Country and Regional Engagement with the International Institute for Tropical Agriculture. I am also a Senior Program Engagement Specialist with the Technologies for African Agricultural Transformation, TAT, which is a program supported by the African Development Bank and the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. For this webinar, my role is as moderator to help us move the program along. In a short while, you will receive opening remarks from the DDG, the Deputy Director General.
This meeting is being recorded.
The Deputy Director General of IITA, and also from AUDA NEPA. For now, permit me to make a few housekeeping announcements. We've been informed, or we've already been advised to keep our microphones muted all the time, except when we are speaking. For the speakers, we require you to turn on both your video and, of course, unmute. It would be good to see who is speaking, so your videos should be turned on when it's your time to speak. I also want to advise you about the chat box. This is a very significant part of our proceedings this afternoon, and we really want to encourage you to engage. The first engagement is something that you need to do right now. We'd like you to get into the chat box. Just put down your name, say greeting to anybody, and just put down your name and your institution and an email if you wish. The point is that there are a number of people who are on the platform, but they have not even gone through the formal registration. But as a way of keeping the chat box alive, we really want you to enter, put down your name, put down your organization, and you can also put down your contact detail, either email or phone or something, because we want to build this whole thing to create a group that we can continue to communicate with in this regard. The other thing we would like you to do through your chat box is, as proceedings are going on, please feel free to put down any comments, any reactions, and most importantly, if you have questions, please put them down. Don't even wait for the session to end. Don't wait for the speaker to finish. Just continue to put ideas into the chat box. We have 3 people who are managing the chat box, and at the appropriate time, they will be called to bring up some of the issues that have been put in the chat box, and these will be addressed. Finally, I want to ask that you take note of where the raise hand button is. So at the appropriate time, when you really have to say something, you make use of that raise hand button. Ladies and gentlemen, it's my great delight to set the whole thing open by inviting Dr. Kenton Dashil. Dr. Dashil is the Deputy Director General, Partnerships for Development in IITA, to give his opening remarks. Ken Dashil, please.
Yeah, Kwesi, thank you very much. It's a great honor and a privilege to be part of this webinar today. Greetings from IITA in Ibadan, Nigeria. We are an international institute that is operating in 18 African countries. We do both agriculture research, and we also form partnerships to deliver agriculture technologies at scale. And as Kwesi has mentioned, one of our major programs is called the Technologies for African Agriculture Transformation. We usually say TAT. It is funded by the African Development Bank and the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. And you'll be hearing more about that today. But needless to say, private sector plays a key role as a key partner in this program. Um, we are, I want us to just take a minute and have a dream to visualize what it will be
Yeah.
like when we have modern technologies available
Daniel,
to
webinar.
farmers.
Yeah.
What I can envision is that in a rural setting throughout Africa, when a farmer is thinking about his season, his or her season of planting, they will have access to knowledge and technologies uh, through a digital environment. But right close to their farm, they will have agro dealers that are selling the best seeds for the different crops that they are going to plant. They will have access to the best animal breeds for their animal production, various forms of fertilizer, the different feeds for the animals, of course, herbicides, insecticides to grow their crops. They'll have access to mechanization, mainly through service provision, tractor service hire provision, etc. In other words, the farmers will have access to all the technologies they need to be business farmers. And then the farmers actually are the key drivers. They are the private sector. They are the key members of the private sector to drive agriculture forward. Of course, the banks will be highly active in these rural areas, providing low interest rate loans to farmers. Farmers will have access to markets. There will be processing facilities, etc. So let's visualize this highly productive agriculture environment that is driven and empowered by the private sector. That's what we're here to discuss today. So I really want to thank the wonderful partnerships we have with Grow Africa, with FARA and AATF. AATF, they are wonderful partners. And I want to encourage all of us that are on the call right now, and I see we are 131. That's wonderful. I encourage all of us to actively participate and take all those suggestions that Kwesi gave us for how we can communicate using the chat box, etc. Kwesi, back to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Kenton. Thank you so much. At this stage, I'd like to call the second dignitary who would give us also an opening remark, and that will come from Mr. Ibrahim Buruza Magaji. Ibrahim is the Chief Operations Officer for Grow Africa within the African Union Development Agency, AUDA, NEPA. Ibrahim, the stage is yours, please.
Thank you very much, Program Director. Dear Kwesi, it's good to see you. Dr. Dashiell, dear friends and colleagues, first of all, I would like to start by extending the greetings of our NEPAD CEO, Dr. Ibrahim Hassan Mayaki. He would have loved to be with us this afternoon, but unfortunately, due to last-minute commitments, he's extending his apology and his greetings. So really, my remarks this afternoon, are going to be in 3-4 points. Colleagues, you will recall that since Malabo Declaration in 2014, we have been finding a way to bring private sector to invest at large and at scale into agriculture in Africa. So I'm very happy that since June 2017, as African institutions under the leadership of the African Union Commission and NEPAD, we have adopted finally the framework which facilitates rather private sector investment into agriculture in Africa. It's called CAPEF, Country Agribusiness Partnership Framework. It has been adopted at the CADA PP in June 2017. That was in Kampala. So that is the framework we operate within, as Go Africa to rally private sector investment into agriculture in Africa. So CAPEF does mainly four things. First of all, CAPEF conducts policy changes. CAPEF mobilize private sector investment and FDI investments. CAPEF sets up coordination mechanism in countries. And lastly, CAPEF provides a mutual accountability framework so that we can hold each other accountable in terms of various commitments. My colleague, Dr. Wombo, when he will take the stage, will elaborate more on our business model, how we do business as Go Africa in rolling out CAPEF in those 44 countries which have signed for CADAP. But I'm really happy to report that the model has been tested and is working perfectly. Between 2019 and 2020, we have helped to mobilize $500 million of investment in various value chain in 6 African countries. As I said, my colleague Augustine will elaborate more on that. So, but why do we need technology in order to transform African agriculture? You see, the CAPEF model, which we have designed as Go Africa, start with setting up a multi-stakeholder platforms. So we bring all the actors of the platform together and we organize them into working groups. Wherever I go in African countries to set up CAPEF coordination mechanism or multi-stakeholder platforms, there is one issue which comes over and over and over when I speak to smallholder farmers, is this access to technology in order to grow their farms and to be transformed into agribusinessmen or agribusinesswomen. So technology definitely will, obviously, as Dr. Dashiell said, improve the yield, and technology will help to grow those smallholder farmers so that we can turn them into, by connecting them into the commercial supply chain, into a really businessman or woman. Third point, now that CAPEF has been tested and it's working perfectly, how do we scale up CAPEF? To scale up CAPEF, we need partnership. As Grow Africa, we cannot do it alone. So we are seeking to build a network of wheelers, a network of partners based on the comparative advantage. So if we have partners which are strong in terms of organizing smallholder farmers or channeling funding to smaller farmers, we work with them. If we have partners which are strong in terms of technology and research and development, we want to work with them. So basically, I'm very happy that we have started a discussion with the Institute for Tropical Agriculture. On my side and on the side of Go Africa, we see this webinar this afternoon as a kickoff of a great partnership we are going to roll out together. I know that our team are working on putting together an MOU, and beyond the MOU, putting together work plans for the next 3 years in selecting some pilot countries. So I'm really looking forward toward the finalization of those documents, so then we can start working together. In conclusion, what I want to say is that we are really here to learn more about that, how you do business, and also hear about other organizations, so then we can expand our base of partnership, as I said, for CAPEF rollout and for mobilizing more private sector investment for agriculture in Africa. I want to end by wishing you a good meeting and most definitely a fruitful deliberation. I thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Ibrahim. Those are excellent. I'm happy to hear that you've been able to mobilize $500 million already invested through CAPEF. and that's really exciting. You've highlighted the key importance of technology, and that was the same thing that was also highlighted by Dr. Dashil. And you went on to say for scaling up to work, partnerships are key. Thank you very much. Those are very important points. At this point, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to move now to hearing the keynote speakers. And we have two keynote speakers who are going to help us. They're going to help us lay bare some of the issues that we have to deal with. And one of the keynote speakers is coming from the side of Auda Nepat. And I'd like to invite Dr. Engineer Wambo Yamjeo. He is an international agricultural economist and rural development specialist with over 20 years of experience. Okay, sorry. With about 20 years of experience. He now works more on various aspects of state capabilities development, strategic policy reform, facilitation of private sector engagement in agriculture, program design and implementation, as well as knowledge management. Now, prior to joining NEPAD in September 2013, he served on a 21-month assignment with the Global Donor Platform for Rural Development as their task leader on CARDEC and agricultural research and development in Africa. Augustin is extremely knowledgeable in the nexus between climate change and the transition towards our changing food systems. It's with great delight as I call on Augustin to take the stage and share his thoughts with that. Over to you, Augustin.
Thank you very much, Kwesi. Thank you to IIT and TAT for this exciting event that we have been able to put together. Thank you also for the prospect of a very fruitful collaboration going forward in our partnership. So my task today is to help frame the discussion. And as our boss just reported, Grow Africa is a program of the African Union Development Agency. I'm struggling with my, yes, Grow Africa is the program of the African Union Development Agency, AOD in part, which I'm going to quickly run you through now. My presentation is structured around, let's say, 6 substantive slides. I will be quickly taking a glance at the agriculture in Africa in today's context. I will be mentioning a bit more about Grow Africa and then zeroing in following what Ibrahim presented on the country agribusiness partnership, a framework, which is CAPEF, and we will also try and showcase some of the successful structuring of agri PPPs, where it made reference to the $500 million investment that we're able to mobilize, and also touch on what lies ahead for us and provide some perspectives from Grow Africa on technology. Yes, I know we are quite familiar with the conversation around how critical agriculture is for the continent. I don't think we will disagree here. We will have a single person here disagree with me if I contend that agriculture is the best bet for the continent if we were to realize inclusive economic transformation. The reason why we see this is we can just look at a few metrics, whether we're talking about the percentage of employment that the sector is offering to the continent, or whether we're talking about the contribution to GDP, or about the size of the market and what we can foresee in the near future by 2030, where we can have a 1 trillion market or we're talking about the amount of arable land that we have on the continent. I think if you look at this, you have enough reasons to believe that we are better off investing in something like agriculture than trying to reinvent the wheel, whereas we already have some good pointers as to where to go when it comes to getting our continent back on track. One thing I also would like to mention is that the continent as a whole has been working very hard, tirelessly, to ensure that we indeed transform our agriculture in a sustainable manner. This is why our leaders in 2003 in Maputo adopted the Malabo Declaration that gave birth to the Comprehensive Africa Agricultural Development Program, CADEP. Working tirelessly with all key constituencies in the agricultural ecosystem of the continent, we have been able to spearhead the process in getting 44 countries to sign the compact. And out of the 44, close to 40 today have developed the National Agricultural Investment Plan. And in 2014 in Malabo, another important declaration was made by our leaders. And this particular declaration made it a point that they put at the center of the whole discussion the importance of enhancing investment finance in agriculture, with the private sector being seen as the key driver for making this happen. And the leaders move on to establish Grow Africa, which is a very specific flagship program for the African Union that was founded jointly between African Union Commission, the New Partnership for Africa's Development, and the World Economic Forum back in 2011 during one of the WEF conferences. As mentioned already by Ibrahim, Grow Africa works towards increasing private sector investment in agriculture and accelerate the execution and impact of investment commitment. Why was it important to have Grow Africa? It was simply because between 2003, 2011, it was quite a struggle to find the right vehicle to drive private sector investment into supporting the rollout of NAIP, which is a National Agricultural Investment Plan in countries in the context of CADEP. And it was important to come up with that particular vehicle that would speak the private sector language, that would be very sensitive to the issues that are peculiar to these key constituencies of agricultural transformation on the continent. So Grow Africa works fully within the CADEP framework, which is by far one of those frameworks that have really brought a completely new discourse in the space of development on the continent, looking at the principles that and values that the CADEP promotes, looking at the type of results that countries are able to show today. And we believe that thus far, the journey has been a very learning curve, a good learning curve, and a successful one indeed. In 2016, in a very strategic move, the Grow Africa Secretariat, initially housed by the WEF, which helped to nurture the program, was moved from the headquarters in Geneva to South Africa, Johannesburg, and housed within the AUDN part. And as mentioned before, our role as Grow Africa is to be a convener and a catalyst, and to work towards bringing together the key stakeholders that are relevant to make private sector investment effective in agriculture. And in making sure that we are successful in doing this, working with the African Union Commission, working with other partners, we came up with the instrument that we call in the Country Agribusiness Partnership Framework. And through this instrument, which by its own nature is meant to help structure investment financing along specific value chains in countries. Through this instrument, I said, we now have footprint in 16 African countries, including Ghana, Mozambique, Kenya, Madagascar, Sierra Leone, Kingdom of Eswatini, and the like. And we are still counting. Now, to zero in on the CAPEF, the Country Agribusiness Partnership Framework, it is about structuring effective partnership, as I mentioned, and support platforms around NAIP, the National Agricultural Investment Plan, and also help to build trust and confidence between the private and public stakeholders, connecting value chain actors and linking private investment opportunity to public reforms. If you look at it carefully and you were to compare it to the situation that we were having back in 2003, when in Maputo, head of state adopted CADEP, we have come a very long way in the sense that we seem today more than we did yesterday to have cracked the nut, to have come up with the ideal pathway towards making sure that we have the right features in place for the private sector to feel comfortable engaging under the CADEP process. So the CAPEF as an instrument aims to supplement country investment plan by stimulating private investment. This is to say that this is not coming to replace the NAIP, which is, in our understanding, the core framework for channeling actions into agriculture, to convert the agricultural strategy into a set of implementable actions. So CAPEF is just helping to bring the private sector fuel that is needed to make the whole engine function optimally. Operationalizing CAPEF at country level will require, in a nutshell, identifying systemic policy issues, as mentioned, that are inhibiting agribusiness development, which we see as a core element, which is actually a game changer for the continent to have appreciated the value of going the agribusiness route than promoting the traditional agricultural development. I think this in itself is a big achievement. And Go Africa has been at the forefront in making sure that we get to that understanding. Second, mobilizing and unlocking investment finance from stakeholders to support agricultural activities. Facilitating matching investment finance with gap and needs along value chains serve also, more importantly, as the dynamic inventory and registry of each country partnerships and commitment on investment policies. So on the right of the slide, you can see in a nutshell the business model that Go Africa, working with partners, has been able to come up with. When we move into a particular country, the first thing is to look at what we have, what the country has. What are the specific strategic value chains that the country has identified in the stock taking as they were doing their NAIP development process? Once we have that, we are very much interested in appreciating whether there is already an established multi-stakeholders platform for the particular value chain that we are looking at. If not, we help to establish one, because we believe it's important for a value chain to have a multi-stakeholder platform that will be the rallying point to bring all the key players together. That's number one. Number two, once we have that, we need to make sure that we have a business case. Before you could encourage people to put money, to flood resources into the value chain, make sure that you can stand your ground, you have a case to sell. Once that is done, we do matchmaking promotion, which is about connecting those who have resources, those who have ideas, with those who are interested in investing. And then one innovation that we came up with is to develop what we are calling the term sheet. that will help to structure the PPPs and the B2Bs. Once that is done, an exciting and challenging task ahead of us is to make sure that we unlock the key business deals. Assuming that we're successful in doing that, we have to make sure that we put emphasis in ensuring that accountability is in place, that we are able to hold each other accountable to the commitments that have been made. Applying this model from what you see has led Go Africa to a structure for up to $500 million investment, which has been done through our active involvement in the Alliance for Green Revolution, the African Green Revolution Forum, AGRF, during the 2019 and 2020 sessions. Go Africa is a very important AGRF partner with a very critical role to play, especially when it comes to the deal room, agribusiness deal room, which is an innovation introduced into the AGRF back in 2019 with a very active role played by Go Africa in making it happen. So last year, we were able to structure up to 200 million US dollars, covering value chains like dairy, tomato, macadamia, soybeans, and horticulture in Ghana, Malawi, Uganda, Nigeria, and Kingdom of Eswatini. Building on the momentum of last year, during the AGRF 2020, we were able to move one step up in the ladder. We were successful in structuring 13 term sheets amounting to 250 million US dollars in Cote d'Ivoire, in Malawi, in Uganda, in Madagascar, and in Mozambique, in Ghana and Nigeria. The last two countries I've just mentioned, I'm happy to report that those term sheets were very much aligned to the conversation that we're having today, technology. How do we use technology to provide quality service, precision services to farmers and to other stakeholders along the value chains? The term sheet itself is a document signed between two or more parties that summarizes the principal terms of a proposed investment by a company in a specific country and in a particular value chain or beyond. And the term sheets are signed by involving the parties signing the term sheets could involve the government of the respective countries committing to support the investment through policy formulation and enforcement, as well as provision of all kinds of policy infrastructure that you can think of. So now, having said this, as Go Africa, we do have some specific perspective on technology. And also, we would like to share, I'm having some problem moving the, yes. Our understanding is that technology is a pivot, is the pivot actually. We are trying to see here how private sector in reality is making things happen in a bold way. If you agree that technology is a pivot, because you are looking at how digital technology is changing farming in Africa through provision of an increasing number of precision services, we are also in a position to agree that disruptions that we are observing today are going to go a very long way. If you are looking at how new breeds of crops and animals are being released by research and are helping us to better manage climatic stress while increasing yields, then you are in a better position to appreciate the value of technology. So for us, technology is the pivot. If you are appreciative of how critical it is to have an effective and well-functioning innovative system that produces technology that is needed by the users, by the end users, then you are in a better position to appreciate that technology works best when it is co-created. Meaning on the innovation system, you have all the key players, including those who have the knowledge and those who are in need of solutions to the challenges that they are facing, the farmers and the other key players along the value chains.
Augustine, can I suggest you try to round up because of time, please?
Yes, I'm done. I'm done almost, sorry. We are also contending that the cost of limited to no technology is something that we don't want to experience because it's unbearable, including in the short term. In our understanding, embracing technology is not an option. This is the way to go. There's no replacement to it. Not to give it a try would be letting down the people that we're supposed to help grow. The last point I wanted to make on this perspective is that nowadays the right technology is cost effective and shows the value for money. This is where we begin to speak the language that private sector would like to appreciate and understand. Now, the last slide of the 6 is that we have a very interesting road ahead for ourselves as Go Africa in the months to come. There are also challenges, but there are very exciting opportunities that we would like to seize. One, facilitate more agri-based PPPs, more term sheets across the countries, working hard to convert those we already have into business deals on the ground, expand our footprint to cover all the 44 countries which have subscribed to CADEP, launch and operationalize the Go Africa Business Council, which is a CEO-led private sector agricultural investment advisory panel for head of state at the highest level possible. 5, build partnerships with like-minded entities in pursuit of contribution to agricultural transformation. And last but not least, actively join all main coalitions that purposefully highlight the central role of technology in modernizing agriculture with private sector in the driver's seat. With this, thank you very much, and sorry for taking more time. Back to you, Mr. Moderator.
Thank you so much, Augustine. This is very exciting. You've highlighted a number of very important areas, but I think one key thing that will strike a chord with all of us is the emphasis on investment financing and how through Grow Africa and the CAPF facility, we've been able to mobilize all these monies in various countries. And also the emphasis you place on the NAIPs. The NAIPs are the National Agriculture Investment Plans or programs, you know, and these are very important. So we need to see how we link various operations that we are engaged with in accomplishing the goals of these NAIPs. And finally, you talk about the importance of building partnerships that will ensure that we are synergizing with one another towards the goals that we have set. So thank you very much, Augustine. Ladies and gentlemen, we're now going to move into the second gear where we take on the second keynote. And this keynote is coming from a director of agriculture and agro-industry from the African Development Bank. His name is Dr. Martin Frejene. Martin is a plant geneticist with 27 years of experience in the field. He began his career at the International Institute of Tropical Agriculture, 1991. He was the recipient of a Rockefeller Foundation postdoctoral fellowship on genetic mapping at the International Center for Tropical Agriculture, CIAT, in Cali, Colombia. In 2008, he joined Bio Cassava Plus project in the Danforth Center, a project which is funded by the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. And he rose to the position of project director. Currently, as already said, he is with the African Development Bank as director of agriculture and agro-industry, and he's very much involved in the realization of the Feed Africa component of AFDB. It is with great delight that I invite Martin to take the floor and share his thoughts with us. Martin, over to you.
Thank you very much, Kwesi. And it's a pleasure to join the rest of participants at this important conference. I also wish to thank ITA and thank Grow Africa for convening this very important meeting. And in the next 10 minutes or so, I would like to talk about some of the challenges of African agriculture, also talk about the importance of the private sector and their role in ensuring the transformation of African agriculture. Then I will just end up by quickly describing what the African Development Bank is doing with respect to addressing technology and also the challenges in African agriculture. Everybody knows that one of the biggest challenges to African agriculture this year has been COVID-19. COVID-19 has convulsed the entire world. It has led to reduced economic activities, led to disruptions in global supply chains. And recently, the World Bank just released the price index of main commodities. And one thing we have noticed is that commodities have doubled or in some cases tripled in price across the African continent. I really encourage you to look at what the World Bank has published with respect to commodity prices. But at the same time, COVID-19 is a dark cloud with a silver lining. African governments are beginning to realize that developing the agricultural sector is not an option. It is compulsory. To have food sovereignty is compulsory to ensure you can feed your people with your own food supply, not just by imported food. It is now no longer a discussion of if or when. No, it's a discussion of how and now. Going forward, I have to say that African agriculture, like we all know, is characterized by two things. One is low productivity. We still have a third of global averages for the main cereals and crops that feed Africa. We also have 50% of value addition compared to global averages. Global averages is about $180 of value is added to every ton of food produced, while in Africa it's about $90. But at the same time, there are bright spots in African agriculture. African agriculture has been growing at between 2 and 3% every year, one of the highest growth rates of any agricultural sector in the world. But that growth rate is not sufficient to meet the population increase, about 3% every year, and at the same time, it's not sufficient to meet the GDP increase. When GDP increases, people demand higher quality foods of meats and vegetables. So in short, African agriculture is actually underperforming. And this has translated to a huge increase in imported food. Right now, we are importing an estimated $47 billion of food every year. That will increase by 2025, if nothing is done, to $110 billion. So we at the African Development Bank are concerned about that. And because when you import food, you put pressure upon the country's currency, and also you kind of mess up the macroeconomic environment. So we have been concerned, and we have been working with a number of partners, development partners, NEPAD, Grow Africa, AUC, and also the multilateral development banks to see how we can reverse, this falling per capita food production on the continent. So we have tried to address the productivity question, and the Technologies for African Agricultural Transformation that is co-hosting this meeting is one of the bank's responses. We have also tried to increase value addition through the creation of what we call special agro-industrial processing zones, and also through the strengthening of agricultural processing clusters. We also are looking for other ways, to create an enabling policies. But I won't talk about all those today. What I want to emphasize on today is the private sector. Why the private sector is a key driver for the transformation of agriculture we want in Africa. And why is that so? The bank estimated that to develop African agriculture, to correct the problems of productivity, to correct the problems of low value addition, will require between $24 and $30 billion annually to be able to do that. That's a lot of money. Currently, African governments, development banks, development partners provide between $7 and $8 billion annually to development of African agriculture. There's a shortfall, of between $16 and $24 billion that has to come from somewhere else. And of course, the only partner that can provide that kind of money is the private sector. The private sector today is investing nothing less than $16 billion in the sector, but we need to crowd in more investment. There's so much investments in pension funds, there's so much investments in the stock market, trillions that can be invested in agriculture, provided the investment climate is right. That's what I'm talking about today. How can we catalyze greater investment by the private sector into the sector? First of all, I have to begin by saying that who are these actors? A recent study by Michigan State University showed that 80% of all food consumed in Africa passes through the hands of small and medium enterprises. From inputs, the agro dealers, the retailers of fertilizer and seeds, to production, the smallholder farmers, to aggregation, the traders who go into the rural areas to buy the food and aggregate them, to third-party logistics, transportation, all the way to processing, value addition, small and medium scale processing of cassava, of maize into flour, all the way to marketing. It's mostly SMEs. So when we're talking of private sector, we're not just talking of the big companies. As a matter of fact, for me, the big emphasis is on SME private sector in agriculture. How do we create the right investment climate to ensure that these people thrive, and as they thrive, they attract greater investment into the sector? First of all, I have to mention that there has been market and government failures in the sector, and this is what we need to address. Government and market failure, with respect to policies. Take, for example, DRC Kinshasa does not have a seed law. So anybody can come and sell grain and seed in DRC and get away scot-free. But who pays the price? The smallholder farmer who has to plant those grain and seed and doesn't get the desired yields. So there have been market and government failures. Other failures are in infrastructure, rural infrastructure, telecom infrastructure. We have heard from Wambo, the graphical representative, of how ICT is a very important, part of transforming African agriculture. But we need telecom infrastructure in the rural areas. We've also seen government and private sector failure, with respect to asymmetry of information, market information, for example. There is a surplus in one region of the same country, in another country, and it's a huge demand, but it is never connected. Also, the regulatory environment, very important. Food safety. Cross-border trade suffers from all kinds of things, including tariff and non-tariff measures. But probably the biggest problem that cross-border trade suffers from is food safety. You cannot sell, maize that has aflatoxin in Kenya if you are bringing it from Uganda, because the Kenyan authorities have rules against what you sell in that country. So we really need standards in Uganda to ensure that all the maize produced, those are all the things that are creating the uneven playing field. And we need to address them right away for the private sector to be able to reach its full potential. I will talk about, some of the ways I think the private sector can be assisted, and then end by describing what the African Development Bank is doing. There are 4 things I think the private sector really needs to be supported with. The first is technologies, and I'm glad we're talking about technologies today. Seed of improved varieties, especially climate-adapted varieties, because to be sustainable, you also have to remember that climate change is real. Invasive pests are real. So we need technology that actually addresses all that. We also need technologies like as we mentioned, ICT technologies to reduce the transaction costs, both for the producer, for the processor, and eliminate the information asymmetries that I mentioned earlier. Secondly, we need policy, and not just policy, but policy as incentives. Policy is many things. It encompasses many things. It encompasses infrastructure, rural roads. It encompasses wholesale infrastructure. it encompasses seed laws, especially seed laws that are harmonized across regions so that a variety released in one country can be sold, without any problem in another country. Policies also involve aligning trade policies to agricultural policies, providing opportunities for our own local farmers to thrive and not just creating a dumping ground environment in Africa. Of course, finance is there. Finance is a very important thing. As many people have already shown, while Africa agriculture, accounts for 16% of total GDP, total lending to the sector is like 5%. So we have to think of innovative ways to share risk with banks, perceived risks, both perceived and real risk, to ensure them to finance properly. Having spoken about some of those things that we need to do, another thing is capacity building. Yeah, capacity building of SMEs. You may ask why capacity building? Many of our SMEs are not able to access finance simply because they cannot produce bankable, business plans to be able to access finance. Another thing is processing. We all know that processing, requires continual, improvements in processing technologies. We need to be able to provide access to capacity building for our SMEs. So just to wrap up, what is the African Development Bank doing? First of all, is TAT. TAT is an intervention to help to de-risk. Some of the risks that the seed companies face as they try to move new varieties. Take, for example, maize in Southern Africa. We know that climate smart maize in Southern Africa has been produced by CIMIT and other players for decades. But only 20% of those seeds are in the hands of farmers. Why? Because seed companies have mega varieties that they are working with. They don't want anybody to touch that market. Why would I take on this new thing that I don't know if farmers adopt or not? What that is doing is threefold. First of all, organizing demo trials of those varieties all across the different countries. Secondly, providing early generation seeds of those varieties to seed companies. So this is at least that cost is already out. And then lastly, providing both in-country and in season and post-season training to those seed companies to provide to produce those varieties and begin to market them. That actually de-risk the risk of adopting new varieties by farmers by supporting private sector seed companies. So that's one. The other one is ICT. Time will not allow me to talk about ICT, but just to say that the bank strongly believes that the many ICT companies that are already operating on the continent needs to be supported, both by infrastructure.
Martin, you are muted. Please unmute.
Someone was unmuted me. Anyway, so the bank is actually working to integrate supply chains, also to integrate logistics. There's a background noise. Can people mute the microphone if they're not talking? Yeah, so as I was talking about what the bank is doing on value addition, we need to integrate supply chains, processing, logistics, to be able to add value to what Africa is producing. It doesn't make any sense that Africa produces more than 75% of all the world's cocoa, but Africa only takes $6 billion in a $110 billion cocoa industry. But we do have the supply chains, but they're not integrated with processing, and they're not integrated with logistics simply because either there is no incentive for private sector to invest in processing because of the high infrastructure cost, or there's no incentive because of the policies. So we are working with this special economic zones. It creates a one-stop shop, to attract investors, and also creates policy incentives, to attract them of infrastructure, of fiscal incentives, tax holidays and things like that. The special agri agro-industrial processing zones have taken off in a couple of countries now, and we're expecting them to go even much faster in the future. And lastly, the bank is working on what we call the SME ecosystem approach. This complements what the Grow Africa is doing on CAPS. That's the country agribusiness platforms. And what we are doing here is, first of all, we need to realize that we need to aggregate SMEs all across the value chain. And we need to aggregate them on the platform, especially a web-based platforms. As the first thing. The second thing is technical assistance. We need to see what their shortcomings are, with respect to financing. We need to see what their shortcomings are with respect to technologies. We need to see what their shortcomings are and provide technical assistance to the SMEs. And then lastly, of course, and perhaps most importantly, once you have provided technical assistance, you need to provide the finance. And this we are doing in several ways, including risk-sharing facilities with commercial banks in country and also blended finance. But we believe that if you're going to make an impact, the millions of SMEs all across the country, all across the continent that actually provides Africa's foods have to be supported. My time is already fast spent, but just to wrap up by saying that I believe very strongly that Africa's agricultural future is very bright, very, very bright. By 2020, will be $1 trillion market, and we want to make sure that our private sectors, are prepared to invest and take advantage of that market, and also to have a fair returns on their investment. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Martin. That's very, very encouraging, and you end on a very positive note that the future of agriculture in Africa is very, very, very bright, and I agree fully with you. You made this point, the challenge about how do we create the right investment climate that supports the private sector, especially looking at the small and medium. And that's a very key part. You highlighted the key importance of technology, once again, including ICT, but also other technologies. And you talked about policy, the type of policy that incentivizes private sector. I mean, these are all key things, because otherwise the big needs in terms of the investment will not happen. And you've talked about the Africa Development Bank. We're very, very proud of the Africa Development Bank showing itself to be a bank that stands for Africa, and being bold in coming up with these policies that are designed to help the continent. Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to believe that if you have questions or if you have comments, that you are making good use of the chat box. We have chat managers who are very busy looking through the chat box and highlighting a few of them that we will be addressing shortly. But before then, we have the panelists, and we have 6 key panelists. They're going to share very brief ideas with us. I'm going to introduce them all in one go, so we don't have to come back to introducing them in the middle of their delivery. So let's get the picture, the photos of the panelists on. First, I will introduce Frederick Schroes. Frederick is the Chief Executive Officer of the business incubation platform called BIP, which is part of, created by IITA. And he oversees and directs the activities of all the commercial units of BIP. He has spent the last 30 years working in the plant multiplication and seed sector for multinational companies, including Aztec Global in the Netherlands and Germain Seed Technology as part of Associated British Foods. So Frederick has a lot of private sector. Private sector is in his blood because he operates from the domain of private sector. Our technical crew, I was expecting to get the photos on the screen so people will see the people I'm talking about. Please, if you are working on them, let's have them on the screen. The second person I would like to introduce is Samuel Adeni Adediran, Dr. Samuel Adeni Adediran. He has accrued over 2 decades of research for development experience, including international research for development. Currently, he is employed as project coordinator for the Third Livestock Compact, and he's based in the International Livestock Research Institute, Iluri. NII develops strategies which facilitate the uptake of proven livestock innovations for the benefit of millions of livestock producers. So the third panelist that I would like to introduce is Jose Kamanda. And Jose is a coordinator for the
Kamanda. HIV.
Please, can you mute your microphone, please? Can you mute your microphone? Jose Kamanda is a coordinator of the High Iron Beans HIV Compact of TAT, and he is based at the Alliance of Biodiversity International and SEAT. Jose has extensive research for development experience in Asia and Africa, having worked with ICRISAT, with Wageningen University, and with Africa Rice. Then comes the next panelist that I would like to introduce, and she is Ndidi Okonkwo Mbuneli. Ndidi is an expert on African agriculture and nutrition, in philanthropy and social innovation. She has over 25 years of international development experience and is a recognized serial entrepreneur, author, public speaker, and consultant. Ndidi is a managing partner of Sahel Consulting, Agriculture and Nutrition Limited, which works across West Africa. She is also the founder of Leap Africa, which inspires, empowers, and equips a new cadre of principled, disciplined, and dynamic young leaders in Africa. We still have 2 final people to introduce. The first is Keba Kole, and Keba is the Director of Inclusive Business Development at IDH, the Sustainable Trade Initiative, leading IDH's global work on agriculture value chain and business development. At IDH, Keba directs work on inclusive agribusiness and supply chain development, including facilitation for affordable finance, building capacity, and strengthening SME business operations. Finally, ladies and gentlemen, let me introduce Tunde Kara. Tunde grew up on a farm. He has a 13-year career building brands and leveraging technology to solve problems for business in Africa. He has worked with and run projects for global brands present in the African market, including Samsung, Coca-Cola, Google, General Electric, and some others. His current focus is on Africa's food service business. Tunde leads the team at Vendiase, Africa's online marketplace, which connects food businesses directly to supply from farms. Ladies and gentlemen, this indeed is a rich array of people that we have been able to bring together. And at this point in time, we are going to give them some time for them to very briefly, in each case, share with us some thoughts relating to this theme that is being addressed here on the critical importance of private sector. We want to know what sort of models have worked and what are some of the key elements of this so that we can build upon them as we move forward. Let me begin by first of all calling Mr. Frederick Schurz, the CEO of the Business Incubation Platform of IITA. Frederick, your turn is on, so please take the floor. Frederick, please turn on your video and unmute.
Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. Thank you for the introduction, Crazy. Do you all hear me? Crazy, do you hear me?
Frederick, we can't hear you. We can't hear you, and we can't see your video also. Okay, let's move to somebody else, and then Frederick, you will come on second. So let me call Dr. Ni Adediran, Ni, the coordinator of the TAT Livestock Compact at Iliri. Ni, can you take the stage, please? Dr. Ni Adediran, Ni, remember to unmute because we can't hear your voice.
Hello, hello.
Can you hear me now?
Unmute, please.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, now we can hear you.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Kwesi. My name is Niya Didiron, and I'm the coordinator of the TAT Livestock Compact. I'm working in Ilri, Addis Ababa, Ethiopia. And my presentation is going to focus on two of the commodity compacts of TAT, which is aquaculture and livestock, and also three of the enabler compacts, which is the youth enabler capacity development and the policy compact.
Me, please, can you use the presentation mode on your slide? Can you click the presentation mode at the bottom of your...
Can you see it now? I'm on the presentation mode now. I hope it comes across.
Okay, you go ahead because I...
Okay. Yeah, I think I'm sharing my screen now. So very briefly, I would like to talk about the technologies being promoted by aquaculture and livestock. The objectives of that has already been discussed by the director, Dr. Fregene, so I need not to go into that. And the aquaculture compact and livestock compact are promoting technologies in genetic improvement, improved management practices, improve access to affordable feeds, improve processing and value addition of technologies. And as you can see on this slide, aquaculture is promoting the monosex tilapia fish and the clarias by multiplying fingerlings and bringing these fingerlings to value chain actors. They are promoting low-cost fish feed using locally available materials and post-harvest technologies, including solar tent drying and smoking technology. The livestock compact is also promoting genetic improvement of poultry, of sheep and goats, improved feed resources, multiplication of animal species, improved management practices, and improved health and human and animal health. On this slide, I want to talk about the facilitation of research and public-private sector collaboration that we have experimented, we have piloted, and have found to work very well in the countries where we started this program. And this particular approach is being driven by the African Chicken Genetics Gain Program in ILRI, working in partnership with private sector, with technology developers, innovators, and the industry. This basically involve testing local breeds of chicken and also exotic breeds to identify which of them have the capacity to increase productivity and are amenable to semi-intensive management practices. And the private sector that is being supported in Ethiopia is called Ethio Chicken. In Nigeria, it's a company called Bidelium. So from innovation and science to development, we move any products that has been developed through development stage to small and medium holder farmers for improved nutrition, improved production practices, and improved the livelihood of producers. In terms of the research, we focus on farmers' needs, identify farmers' needs, national interests, interest of industries, identify the value chain actors, what are their expectations, what role should they play. On this basis, we test and refine different products. And once we've identified suitable breeds of chicken, which has already been identified, the Noila breed in Nigeria, the Sasso in Ethiopia, and different breeds, we develop a business case. It's been mentioned before that without a good business case, the private sector will be reticent to invest. And then we identify suitable financial models along the different value chain nodes. And with our enablers, we develop capacity programs and choose best bet options. In this slide, I want to show an example of how one of the private sector partners is working in Ethiopia to deliver improved poultry genetics through the different nodes of the value chain to small and medium holder farmers. The company in question is a private sector known as Ethio Chicken, which has some partnership with the government of Ethiopia, and they have their own parent stock of chickens. They have their feed manufacturing concern, and they train out growers, which after hatching their day-old chicks, they sell these day-old chicks through agents which have been trained. There are about 4,000 such agents in Ethiopia alone, each of them rearing between 2,000 to 5,000 day-old chicks in every round of production. And together, they are producing about 52 million chickens per year. They breed these chickens for 5 to 6 weeks and then sell them to smallholder farmers who raise them for broilers and for egg production. Broilers that are able to produce up to 230 eggs under extensive and semi-intensive production system, and broilers that can attain 2 to 3 kilograms in about 6 to 8 weeks. They sell their products in local market through aggregators and processors and traders. In all these nodes, private sectors are very, very active, working with the NAS, the NGOs, USA program, the Agricultural Transformation Program, and with cooperatives in Nigeria. So what lessons have we learned? The key lessons we've learned in this collaboration with private sector and research is alignment with national priorities. It is critical that whatever program is being developed has public sector buy-in. But in addition to that, there needs to be enabling environment, some of which has been discussed today, the infrastructure, the ICT facilities, energy, water, and the right financial model. In the case of Ethio Chicken, it was a combination of foreign capital and national partnership that made this model to come out. And then we engage youths in small and medium enterprises and build the capacities of these youth. So in conclusion, the TAG program has a holistic approach to research private sector engagement, as has been shown in the previous slides. The commodity compacts that are the custodians of technologies recognize that technologies per se are not the magic bullets. You know, there is a need for the role of the enablers, the youth enabler, the capacity development policy enabler, such that the machinery of delivery can be well oiled. And underlying everything that we do in tax is commercialization. We're always asking the question, how can this be commercialized? How can this go to market? This is my second to the last slide. In aquaculture, in terms of achievements, they've produced about 120 million fingerlings, which has been distributed through over 250,000 value chain actors. They've trained more than 20,000 actors in high productivity aquaculture program and fish production, and also improve management practices. The tax livestock compact has reached over 500,000 farmers, have trained about 120 small and medium enterprises in the utilization of low quality available raw materials to produce high quality feeds, which can be used in poultry production, in fish production, in small ruminants and cattle production. We've also worked with other partners to engage about 500 youths in sheep fattening business in Ethiopia. And our partner on this project is ICADA. And we have trained East African Farmers Federation members from 8 countries on these livestock technologies and scaling processes. So thank you very much for your attention. These are our partners with whom we have worked in our target countries.
Thank you so much. I think this is an excellent example that shows just how much work is taking place within the TAT framework. And this is basically focusing on the livestock, as well as emphasizing the fact that it's not only technology. It's not just about technology. That technology is not the magic bullet that flies on its own, but that it is important to make sure that all these enabling elements are also undertaken. So thank you very much. Let's move on straight. And I must say, I have seen one hand which is raised, the hand of Sahid Ademola, and I will reward Sahid at the appropriate time to give him a space to voice something out. But for now, we'll go straight to the other panelists. And let me find out if Mr. Frederick Schroers, Business Incubation Platform CEO. Frederick, can you take it on now?
Yes, I hope so. You hear me?
Yes, we can hear you very well.
Ooh, saved by the bell. I was there before, but virtually you didn't see me. Anyway, good afternoon. Thank you all for the nice introduction. Apologies for the inconvenience. And let me go quick to a small presentation I've made. My presentation links in very much with the presentation from the first 2 presenters. I will go now to presentation mode. I hope you will see it. Is it enlarging?
Not yet.
Enables the content. Enables the content.
Yes, you see it now?
Yes, it's okay now.
Yeah.
Okay, well, gentlemen, ladies, or ladies and gentlemen, better correct. I will give you a small explanation why you should partner with the Business Incubation Platform for business development. First, I give you a very short introduction because I'm not sure everybody's familiar with the Business Incubation Platform. We incubate innovations coming from IITA and other CGR centers. At this moment, we have a few products, services, and seeds available. I will go very short over it. We have a product called AflaSafe, which is a biopesticide. I could make a very nice presentation about that, but there's a lot of information about this topic on the internet already. And I thought, let's take another product, which is the next one, which is a biofertilizer, which is Nodimax, which is an inoculant. This links in very much with the presentation giving in the first setup of this session, where you need to speak about multi-stakeholders. If you don't approach it via a multi-stakeholder approach, it will not work. The same applies for the third one, which is seeds. Then with seeds, prior to seeds, we use tissue culture. Again, we do this with a private partner. And the fourth pillar we have is AgriServe, which is consultancy. We do serve fertility and we do consultancy, business plans, but we also have youth outgrower, because everybody speaks about Africa, future Africa, agriculture. There's another very important component we should not forget for the future of Africa, that's youth. So there's a huge, big, young population who needs to be employed. There's a lot of land available and there's a lot of food imported. If we combine those three micro factors together, I think we can link in what Dr. Fregner said. Africa has a bright future ahead, but we need to link them together. Give you an idea. In Nigeria, we need to increase the soybean production from 0.8 ton per hectare to 3.5. If not, you cannot make an economical model. So we started to look into how can we create stakeholders who are interested in making sure that we increase the yield, that we can make sure that we reduce the import, because Nigeria is importing 40 to 45% of its soybeans. The total hectareage is between 700 to 1 million hectares. We then take an average of 1 ton, you can count with 700,000 tons of soybeans. So everybody with a little bit of common sense can calculate that 40% is 280 tons, which needs to be imported. Because you have to see the whole thing in a broader picture. Because if we suddenly bring it from 1 ton to 3.5, that means we more than triple the production, but suddenly we have too much soybeans. That could create a price erosion. So you really need to make sure you have the supply chain in order with your demand. You need to check the price structure and you need to make sure you have a proper plan in place. So we really went for a multi-stakeholder approach, which is innovation and private sector. We have a herbicide supplier, which is UPL, supported in Nigeria through our representative through Springfield. And IIT Wheat Science did a wonderful job in developing which herbicides need to place at which time in which good agriculture practices to make sure that the farmers can optimize their yields. We have an inoculant which captures the nitrogen from the air. That brings about 30 to 40% yield increase. That's an IITA development commercialized by the DAP. We have seed varieties. We have seed companies like Seedco, who comes with a new variety, produced 3.5 tons per hectare, but also IIT breeders are working on a new variety, which produces 3.5. We connected them to an investor, and now we're going towards the stage that we are doing seed production and variety registration at the same time. So the moment the variety with 3.5 ton is released into the market, there's enough seed available. We take that risk via an investor. Nobody else wanted to do that, but an investor wants to do it because he believes in it. Then the Nigerian Soybean Association, you need to make sure you work in a broader context. They are representing the voice of the soybean growers. And of course, we need to work into the direction of the Ministry of Agriculture or the Ministry and the government of Nigeria. Is soybean an important crop? Yes, it is an important crop for them. So we really tie into their needs. We are now making a plan because you cannot change this overnight because you need to have proper seeds. So in 2020, we go to 2 tons per hectare. I put on red non-GMO, non-glyphosate because we also do on market development. We not just want to increase the market or the yields, but also increase the market demand. And there is another investor who's really interested in buying 30 to 50 tons of of soybeans to be exported. On that, we still import 40 to 45%, which is, we calculated earlier, about 280 tons. So you really see we need to increase the yield to fulfill those requirements from the market. That we need to do by proper supply chain developments with private investors. Most of the money of the activities I will explain you now are coming from private investors. Then we're going to increase from 2.5 to 3 tons per hectare. That's a staging phase where we use the old variety and the new ones. And by 2022, we're going to 3.5. We might need 4,000 tons of seeds to make sure that we can produce the right amount of certified seeds finally through Nigerian seed companies, which need to go to farmers to produce the amount of grains which needs to be produced for the sector. It looks like this. In this overview, you see here the multi-stakeholders, IATA, CGR, consulting, breeders. We need to interact very close with them. The government plays a role, private companies, investors, or other CGR centers, and national institutes, the Soybean Association. Through them, we really speak with them. Then we certify, we check for the inputs, which seeds, I brought it up earlier, inoculants, herbicide, fertilizer. We make business plans, we put them together, we develop the value chains, we develop a return on investment, because if there's no return on investment, no investor will come in there. They will not think like a project or like a donor. Every dollar they invest, they need to have a return. If not, it's not an investor. Keep that very clear in your mind. And we do this, again, what I said earlier, through youth outgrowers. We want to bring young, agripreneur, entrepreneurial young people into the supply chain. Then we start with the production. We control, we monitor this, we evaluate this. We have systems in place. We also have a digital system. I'm not going too much into that. And then we work into 2 supply chains, actually 3. One is making sure we close the gap of the import, roughly about 280 tons, by increasing the yield and using the existing supply chains. Then the second supply chain we have completely developed new ourselves is for oil. We need about 51,000 tons for that. And that's using existing structures. In Nigeria, most of the soybean mills are not working at the optimum capacity. So we're going to use the existing soybean milling factories to make sure that to be set up and enlarged in capacity, oil producing company who supplies the oil, the cooking oil, to the consumers in Nigeria will have enough supply. So we really calculated through from how much seeds, breeder, foundation, certified grains, oil need to be produced to make sure we can make enough small packages. The other supply chain is, as I said before in the beginning, is the export of non-GMO, non-glyphosate soybeans. We speak about a demand between 30,000 to 50,000 tons in the next 2 years, starting in 2021. So these are huge volumes we need to address. As I told you, I work on 3 supply chains. I have much more detailed information, but I have to give you this presentation at a high level. One is reduce the import, which is 40 to 45%. And the other 2 are new supply chains, are new demands. And that's very important because if you bring innovations and you create more yield, you must make sure that you don't create price erosion. You must make sure that there's a proper uptake and that you have all the inputs and input suppliers under control to make sure you can deliver on the quality so that the investor can get his expected return of investment. If you have more questions or remarks, please take a picture of this email direction and contact me directly. I'm more than willing to follow up. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Frederick. Thank you for a very exciting presentation and ending with this crop of very young people. I think the only one who is not young is you. Thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm excited about where we're going. We're going to have the presentation from Mrs. Ndidi Okonkwo Mbuneli, and she will be bringing a completely new dimension into the presentations. As I initially introduced her, she's an expert on African agriculture and nutrition. She's involved in philanthropy and also social innovation. So it's a great delight to invite Ndidi to share her perspectives with us. Ndidi, the floor is yours, please.
Thank you so much for this wonderful opportunity, Dr. Kwesi, and congratulations to the organizers. I feel privileged to be the only woman who has spoken today. So I feel like I'm carrying the burden of all the African women in agriculture. No pressure, but in future, obviously, I'd love to share the stage with more dynamic women who are doing such great work in this sector. So
Well,
I wear a number of hats. Yeah, I wear a number of hats as the co-founder and managing partner of Sahel Consulting. We've been privileged to partner with IITA on many, many projects. And our mission is to transform Africa's agriculture and nutrition landscape and to be recognized as a trusted consulting partner in the landscape. We have many, many partners over the last 10 years that we've worked with on ecosystem solutions. And two of the solutions I just wanted to address is one is called Aldine, Advancing Local Dairy Development in Nigeria. Many of you might be aware of the Aldine program. Aldine builds on a 3-year project we worked on called Nigeria Dairy Development Project. And what Aldine is focused on is catalyzing the Nigerian dairy sector. Nigeria has the 4th largest dairy sector in Africa, and yet we're net importers of milk. In fact, we import 95% of the processed milk consumed in this country. So what Aldine does is work with private sector companies to empower them and support them to source locally. We put nomadic communities into clusters, and we are creating a whole catalytic ecosystem around them, a feed and fodder industry, solar-powered boreholes, artificial insemination, training to ensure that their milk meets standards, and also ensuring government policy that supports them. And this has taken off in 5 states in Nigeria: Kaduna, Katsina, Adamawa, Jigawa, and Plateau. And of course, we work with IITA on basics and YISWA, which are also extremely innovative and catalytic. And I'm sure you'll be hearing more about them through the course of this conference. I'm also the co-founder of ACE Foods. ACE is an agro-processing company. We've benefited from AFLA Safe, which Frederick talked about. And we started this company 11 years ago to demonstrate the potential of sourcing locally. We work with 10,000 farmers. We process for the local market and for exports. And we've proved that a Nigerian company that's locally focused, proudly Nigerian, can deliver high quality products. And we currently export to South Africa, to Germany, and to the United States. Now, through this work, we've observed some very critical issues, which is what I want to devote some time to talking about. We have a challenge with agribusinesses scaling on the African continent. And agribusinesses, the private sector, should be the heart and soul, the center of innovation, and the enabler and the engine of growth in the agriculture sector. But agribusinesses lack funding, access to markets, they have weak brands, a difficulty finding talent, unfavorable policies, so many issues. I spent the last year writing a book, which some of you know about, and through this book, I identified some critical realities and promising trends. The first is climate change. Climate change is a critical reality we're facing on the African continent. If you've been working in West Africa in the last few months, we've had unseasonal heavy rainfalls, we've had droughts in other parts of the continent, high rates of post-harvest losses, limited processing, high rates of malnutrition, infrastructure, talent and financing gaps, poor regulatory environment with flip-flopping of policies, significant gender inequity and gender gaps, and of course, real barriers to regional and global trade. But there are some promising trends. Of course, digitization for agriculture is a very promising trend. Lots of the technology innovations that have been spoken about already, youth engagement, which is just an exciting dimension in our sector, the growing middle class, the interest in healthy diets, and the focus on equity. We recently started a digital business called nourishingafrica.com to try to fill these gaps and capitalize upon these opportunities. And if you haven't visited nourishingafrica.com, please visit it. It's a one-stop shop to really capitalize on the agri-processing and agri-entrepreneurship landscape in Africa. Our vision is to be a one-stop shop for 1 million entrepreneurs who will drive the transformation of our sector and really help us achieve this $1 trillion industry that we need. And what do we provide? Access to data, access to financing, jobs, market linkages, capacity building, and support. And I started Nourishing Africa because I felt very isolated and I didn't know the other people in the sector who were working in other parts of Africa. And I felt the need for all of us to benefit from the great insights, the failures, and the lessons. Now, the key model that I put together in my book, which is really the crux of this message, is that if we're really going to grow this sector, we need to put private sector at the center, but we also need to enable private sector to scale. We have too many micro businesses in agriculture, too many small businesses, but we need businesses operating at scale. And there are 6 components of these business models that will enable scaling. The first is that our models have to be demand driven, not supply driven, not donor driven, not research institution driven, but demand driven with value addition and measurable impact. Each of our business models has to leverage technology, data, innovation, and financing. You cannot scale if you cannot shape the ecosystem. The policy environment has to be supportive. And for the 80 entrepreneurs who I interviewed who have scaled, they shaped the ecosystem. They shaped the standards, the policies, and they work with other entrepreneurs to create an enabling environment. Number 4, your business model has to be cost efficient with dynamic systems and structures to ensure that it's investment ready, to ensure that you can attract financing. And there's more financing available in this sector, chasing opportunities, but most businesses in our sector are not investment ready. Number 5, your business model has to be simple with compelling branding. We don't need to know how to tell our stories and amplify our voice. And we need to know how to package ourselves and brand ourselves. And finally, our business models have to be resilient. They have to build in resilience into their DNA. COVID-19 was one shock, climate change is another shock, there are going to be more shocks. How can we ensure that agricultural businesses operating in Africa are resilient to shocks? Now, these are 6 critical elements that if we address, we will ensure that we can build businesses that scale and that create jobs and wealth in this sector. So as I round up, I want us to consider some critical steps. The first is that we have to build stronger partnerships with private sector driving, but recognizing that in the agriculture ecosystem, we still operate in silos. We cannot thrive and transform this sector if we don't partner with others who are in financing, who are in health and nutrition, who are in gender and climate change and manufacturing and science and technology and infrastructure. As the coordinator of the TWG focused on Vision 2050 for the Nigerian agriculture sector, I've realized that so many of us are working in silos, not realizing that to shape this ecosystem, we need to talk to each other, we need to plan together. We need to put private sector at the center, which means that all the research institutions have to ensure that they have private sector advisory boards and that they're working on demand-driven research that the private sector is asking for. We also need to invest in innovation to ensure affordability and availability of food. The recent SOFI report said that 57% of African households cannot afford nutritious food. It means that we have to work on reducing the cost, ensuring affordability and availability of nutritious food. We have to invest in building the sector. Talent has been the biggest barrier to my growth in this sector, finding good people who are trained. And we need to revamp our educational system to ensure that we're preparing technicians to be able to build the machines we need, policymakers, agricultural workers, agricultural entrepreneurs. Agriculture is a business and it should be thought as a business. And finally, we have to leverage partnerships like Nourishing Africa and others to ensure that we can trade across the sector. I'd like to round up by saying, you know what, we're turning 10 this year, Sahel Consulting, and we want to invite all of you to our 10th anniversary. And at this conference, we're going to be talking about the power of the private sector to leverage innovation and technology to thrive. But when we were conceiving this conference and looking back at the last 10 years, we realized we've only made a small dent in this ecosystem. And that's why we decided to blow up our invitation to say it's Africa-wide, but also it's around cross-sector collaborations. One of my favorite African proverbs says, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go with others. I think Dr. Kwesi is committed to going far. That's why he invited such a broad spectrum of participants to the conference. But obviously, beyond this conference, we need to work together, collaborate, share knowledge, and partner to really create the Africa that we deserve. Thank you so much.
Wow, thank you so much indeed. This is really exciting and wonderful. nourishingafrica.com. Please, colleagues, check that out, and we'll see a little bit more from what Didi has shared with us this afternoon. I like the emphasis you place on partnerships, and that seems to be coming through on every presentation that we have had. Building stronger partnership, placing private sector at the center. And I like the suggestion you made that research institutions should also consider establishing private sector advisory boards. And I must say IIT had one such board, which really supports the business incubation platform that we run. Thank you very much indeed. Ladies and gentlemen, we're now going, we still have 2 more to go. But first of all, let me call, is it 2 or 3? Yeah, let me call Dr. Jose Kamanda. Jose is coordinator for the high ion beams. You may not have heard of high ion beams. It's also often called HIB, high ion beams. And this is a compact within the Technologies for African Agricultural Transformation program. Jose, over to you. And we are running a little bit behind time, so I hope you will be, a bit snappy. Over to you. We can see your presentation.
Thank you very much, Kwesi. In the interest of time, I won't take as long as the previous presenters. I'll be presenting on behalf of a number of crop-based compacts and some of the enabler compacts, which are implementing the TAT program. So I'll present a framework that is used by the High Iron Beam Compact in ensuring that technologies respond to client demands. And this framework also applies to the other compacts, especially the commodity compacts that are implemented by TAT. Typically, research institutions, they look at yield gains, looking at, they do participatory varietal selection, for example. But for the high iron beam compact, much of what we do is led by what is required by the market. So we put the demand, the market demand at the forefront, working with lead farms. They'll take us those who buy grain and maybe export them or sell them in the local market. So we really do grain market, understanding of the grain market, characterization of what is needed. For beans, for example, you have like the yellow beans, you have red mottled beans, you have the red kidney beans. So it's about looking at what are those specific characteristics, not just the type, but also cooking time and aspects they like that. So that is integrated into the breeding program, and therefore varieties that come out are those that are required by the market. And that, of course, goes together with the good agricultural practices that help to improve productivity. So all these technologies, the knowledge and information are really the market demanded ones, which go into smallholder farmers and business for production. So besides that is also organizing supply, not just the seed, fertilizers and so on that are required to ensure that we have the right productivity. And of course, TAT, for instance, is a program, is not a program that can achieve transformation by itself. So there are a number of development organizations, NGOs, government institutions, for example, the country investment programs from World Bank, IPAD, AFDB, and so on, to play a big role in ensuring that these technologies go to scale. So this is how we ensure that the technologies we are providing are responding really to the client demands, and that as farmers produce these products, that they will be taken up by the market. And so once we have these technologies, then we work backwards towards the production side. And in the production hub, there are challenges such as low productivity, lack of quality access to inputs, lack of the knowledge, lack of poor collective action. And there are a number of interventions there that offer business opportunities for a number of stakeholders. For example, in seed production, distribution, and marketing, that's a big area for businesses, for the private sector. Services such as tillage and planting, which can be provided by the public, by the private sector. The soil fertility compact led by IFDC is working on soil fertility solutions, which are also quite important in the production hub. And of course, working with companies like Piara that provide this solution. Paul Amiwam Compact is working on crop protection solutions like Potenza Duo. So these are also solutions that create business, not just for the producers, but also for the agro dealers who trade in these different products. So those products and services run across the value chain. Water management also, the Water Management Compact is looking at irrigation solutions and water management options that could provide means for businesses. If you go to the distribution hub, harvesting, options for harvesting, options for cleaning and packaging, options for aggregation, warehousing, and all those post-harvest protection transport services. These are all businesses that can, especially ASMEs, as Martin spoke about in the value chain. Then in processing, there are options like pre-cooked beans, which are being promoted, options for canning, product packaging, and so on. Also in the consumption hub, you have similar services. So there are all these services that can be offered, and this offer business opportunities for different private sector actors to invest. Across the different compacts through TAT, we've reached quite a number of beneficiaries, more than 20 million, and that is by mid of last year. Some of the technologies include the improved varieties, post-harvest management technologies, fertilizer formulas, and soil and water management practices, more than close to 180,000 metric tons of certified seed. If you don't have certified seed of good quality, then that is the threshold of what you can get in terms of productivity. So you would need a good quality seed. More than 53 million cuttings for the vegetatively propagated crops, and a number of impacts in terms of productivity increases. If you look at sorghum and millet, for example, increases in yield from 1.25 to 3 tons per hectare, millet 0.75 to 1.75. So quite a number of increases in productivity and incomes as well, which compact more than 100,000 additional jobs created. And at the center of this all is ASMEs. So more than 1,400 new entrepreneurs have been engaged in businesses. Just to conclude, the 4 key things. One of these is information. Information asymmetry is one of the challenges that are there. We cannot just assume that private sector is aware and will just take up the technologies. For instance, the inventors of motor vehicles, if you had asked people at that time what they wanted, they would have said they want a faster horse. But the inventors of vehicles had to make the vehicle, and they had to demonstrate that really this is something better. So information is key. Building capacities, not just technical, but also in terms of business management. This is also very critical. Offering linkages between the different actors so that you know what is demanded, so that people can be able to produce this. And a lot of the compact are using what you call multi-stakeholder platforms or innovation platforms to bring different actors together. Another key element is policy, engaging with policy, linking with government investment programs to ensure that you have the conducive environment. Thank you very much, Kwesi, and I think I may have saved some time. Thanks. Your microphone is muted, Kwesi.
Oh, thank you very much for, yeah, thank you so much. It's a very exciting presentation you have made, and particularly highlighting the various options and services and technologies that offer opportunities for private sector to invest in the kind of way that we do. I think it's one of the weak areas in our overall research, and TAT is helping to bridge that, because we've got to get to the point where we have to think about big outscaling. And to do that, we have to figure out where are the opportunities for private sector engagement. And so what you have highlighted and what you have shown is particularly very good. And this underlines the importance of incubation, an incubation phase where we are actually looking at business dimension of the research products. So that's why you have this program such as the Business Incubation Platform, and you have delivery mechanisms also that, and I think these are areas that moving forward, one needs to invest more in. And I'm very happy to say that the CGIAR is actually investing more into that as they move into this one CGIAR process. Thank you very much, Joseph, for that wonderful presentation. Ladies and gentlemen, we're now going to move on to the next speaker. And this is going to be Mr. Keba Kole. Keba is the Director of Inclusive Business Development at IDH, which is a Sustainable Trade Initiative. Keba, if you are ready, can you take it up from here, please? And whilst Keba is getting on, let me just remind you, in case you feel lonely, you are not alone. You have 142 people who are also linking in on this program. And we are very thankful to all of you, 142 people. Keba, are you ready to go?
Yes, good afternoon to you, Kwesi, and good afternoon to everyone. Thank you so much for such a wonderful event and impressive presentation by my sister, the only female in this panel. Thank you so much. Fascinating presentation. And I work for IDH, and IDH is a Dutch, well, Netherlands-based organization funded by the government of the Netherlands, Switzerland, and Denmark. In my capacity as business development, inclusive business development director, I work with private sector companies more or less only. We are a business development foundation. And I did not prepare a presentation because I thought this was going to be an interactive discussion as opposed to presenting. So I'm just going to give a quick presentation while talk through our value chain development approach, which specifically linking to what Indidia said is based on a market-led approach. So we have, as IDH, we have the Farm Fit Fund, which is 300 million euros specifically for blended finance, de-risking, first loss guarantees, and of course, concessional loans and equity. We also have Farm Fit Business Support, specifically working with the private sector companies, the bigger ones, the smaller ones, international Africans, elsewhere in South America and Asia as well, to incorporate smallholder farmers and the SMEs into their global supply chain. So these are the two instruments that we have. So our model is based on access to market first. In any of interventions that we engage and involve in, there must be a buyer. And the second is access to finance. And in finance, I say affordable finance. I would add affordable finance because many of countries in Africa have financial facilities for agriculture development, but it's very difficult for the majority of the farmers or SMEs to actually access anything. So instead, we are focusing on grant money coming from the development agencies. And grant money, we know what that can actually make entrepreneurship. It doesn't support entrepreneurs. The skills of entrepreneurship can basically be hampered because of free money that we get. We're not thinking of how do we use this free money and the scale and access more money for scaling our operation. So in this, we develop what we call a grown sustainably in Africa. Here we work with, example, Nestle or Unilever, which we know have sales in Africa of billions of dollars annually. Most of what they produce and most of what they process and sell in Africa is imported. Their intentions are now to generate and to develop local supply chains across Africa. And so with our model, the Farm Fit Fund, for instance, is 50% IDH money, 50% private sector money, among others, Unilever. So here we work with them to support, develop their supply chain by identifying the potential suppliers, anything from cassava, starches, or sorbitol in Nigeria, to dehydrated vegetables in South Africa, or tomato paste in Ethiopia. So this model is specifically built by developing African supply chains for these companies to access raw material, processed and finished goods, market them and sell on the African continent. Specifically, this is the model that we have, and we are directing this towards job creation, of course, and the intra-Africa trade. So the more African SMEs we're able to develop and work with, the better resilience we are able to create for the African agriculture space. So I will stop here in the interest of time, and thank you so much, Chris.
Thank you so much, Keba. Thank you for giving us that very specific example of initiative that is being run and focusing definitely on this whole linkage of private sector and how we can create, once again, the partnership areas that are necessary for maximizing what is expected through all this work that we are doing in agriculture. Thank you so much, because you highlighted the whole link of the SMEs to domestic and to regional and to international markets, and that possibility of creating all these links across. Very, very useful indeed. Ladies and gentlemen, let me also remind you that we have a number of you who have posted questions and comments. Obviously, we're not going to be able to take it all, but we will definitely have a few of them that will be dealt with, and we will capture every single thing that has been posted so that we will be able to use that as part of the report that we will produce following this event. At this point, let me call our very last presenter, Mr. Tunde Kara, who is CEO of NDSA. And Tunde, you have the floor, please.
Hello, everybody. So the company's called Vendies. I hope everybody can hear me.
Oh, it's Vendies. Okay.
Yes, Vend with ease. Yeah.
Thank you.
Just like my colleague earlier, I thought this was going to be an interactive session, so there was no presentation prepared. But I would like to share a photo of what our business model looks like. So let me see if this works. Okay, can everybody see my screen?
No.
Hello?
Yes, we can.
Okay, cool. Vendies essentially is an online marketplace that connects food businesses directly to supply from farmers. Just like Ndidi said earlier, like I'm glad she actually made her presentation before me because she said a lot of things that I would love to say. And one of them is, for us at Vendies, we're about, almost a year old now, about 10 months old. We decided to fill a gap in the market that we saw needed filling. And that was approaching the agribusiness sector from the point of demand, from the point of making money, from the point of businesses. And that's what we did. So you can see here that we have a three-tiered business ecosystem, all of that surrounding the Vendies online marketplace, where we provide tech, financing, procurement, and sourcing. And also we have the demand side and supply side of things. On the demand side of things, we have food businesses like hotels, restaurants, supermarkets, schools, typically any business that prepares food or sells food and drinks. And then on the supply side, we have farmers and some direct manufacturers. So the value we bring to the system for farmers especially is like the gap that we fill for them is we guarantee offtake. We have guaranteed offtake agreements with some of these farmers. This responsibility is to be filled by government boards, agri boards across Nigeria before, but we have those things. Those things are non-existent now. So we have guaranteed offtake agreements with farmers. We guarantee them their payments because now we take away the middlemen, vendors, and who used to act as middlemen, connecting them to businesses and holding their payments. So we guarantee payments. There's no story. When you sell, you get paid. We help them with, like I said, we aggregate a lot of these businesses. Right now we have over 100 businesses on the platform who regularly daily demand products, farm produce, livestock, cereal, etc. from the farms and farmers on our platform. And we help with logistics too. So ferrying the goods from the farms or where they're stored directly to the businesses who are on our platform. Lastly, we also help to increase the capacity of the farmers on our platforms through data sharing. What this means is, aside from the fact that when the farmers join our platform, they have increased demand because now they're exposed to more businesses than they were exposed to on their own, because now we have like multiple businesses demanding those goods. We also help to increase their capacity because we share data with them. We're growing the data we have. We're still a young company, but right now we have data from over 100 businesses that we share with them, so they know what to produce. They know the quality of produce that we expect, or that the clients or the customers expect. They know when to produce. They know when demand is going to be high or low. So we give them all of this information, and some of the other things that we're working on that I'm not at liberty to share right now. But essentially, what we are in the industry to do is to bridge that gap through technology of demand and supply. So in between demand and supply, there's a big gap, highly fragmented area, and that's what we're here to fill. So that's what we do at Vendies, connecting farmers directly to supply directly to demand from food service businesses. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Tunde, for highlighting the key function of Vendies and linking demand to supply and identifying some critical business opportunities in there. This is a very innovative issue that you have taken on, and very glad that you have shared that model with us.
Yeah, sorry, I'm sure Grow Africa won't forgive me if I don't mention this. We're also partners with Grow Africa. I'm recently one of the beneficiaries of a signed agreement to fund at least 3 million farms across the continent, starting with Lagos. So yeah, we're also working with, so we're also in talks with IDH2, who's supposed to be part of that project. So yeah, good impact so far. So far in 10 months, we've done almost $1 million in terms of transactions on the platform from mainly small farms. So that's a huge impact that we're having already, and we hope to increase this over the next couple of years as we spread to other cities across Africa.
Thank you so much for highlighting once again, the partnership connection, looking at engaging with different groups, but all aimed at increasing the overall agricultural transformation potential for our continent. And also creating job opportunities, for young people. I mean, I see you as a young person, and there are other people in your category who would see what you're doing and realize that there is an opportunity in agriculture for employment. Thank you so very much. Ladies and gentlemen, we now want to take a few of the questions that have been posted, and we have the team that has been looking at that. I must apologize that we are behind time, but Wale Abioye, one of the chat managers, can you share with us some of the key questions, and then we can see how we can get some contributions from our panelists and also from the keynote speakers in that regard.
Hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
All right. So the first question is to Grow Africa. It says, while it is true that most African countries have not yet achieved the 10% or so investment in agriculture out of their GDP, there seems to be low emphasis on trade promotion in agriculture products across Africa. How can the continental bodies accelerate inter and intra-African trade?
Augustine, would you want to very briefly deal with that issue, talking about the trade dimension in the CARDEC?
Yes, I can do that. Thank you for the question. I saw it, and I think what I would like to share here is that looking at the 10% budget allocation to agriculture, the continent as a whole has not been doing very well. But still, thanks to the work that CADEP did in terms of advocacy, we could see that across the countries, the investment, public investment to agriculture was upward. I also think that for quite a few of the efforts that we had set in motion, supporting intra-African trade was not really high on the agenda until the Malabo Declaration in 2014, where a whole commitment was dedicated to that. Now, with the advent of the free trade area, the African Common Free Trade Area, we are seeing some movement. We are hopeful that things will speed up, and hopefully agricultural food trade will also strengthen, and intra-African food trade, of course, will strengthen, and we'll see a different picture going forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Wale, can you give us a second question?
Okay, another question here. I think this is probably going to go to one of the panelists or the third people. In Uganda, we have successfully built a cassava platform involving industrial buyers, like the brewery. Currently, the brewery is offering a price of about 267 per ton. This has to be of good quality. The challenge is sustaining supplies where there is lack of drying facilities. How can we network to design programs that get efficient drying technologies to SMEs in cassava?
Okay. I'm not sure everybody got you because there was a bit of breaking in the whole thing, but I hope it wasn't the same problem with others. Panelists, would any of you want to address this particular question? Wale, is it addressed to any particular panelist?
No, not to any specific panelist.
Okay. I'm not sure because...
I'd like to address that question.
Okay.
Yeah. First of all, it must be understood that cassava chips for the industry is a low value, high volume commodity. So you have to think of what's the cheapest way of drying. And all around the world, the cheapest way of drying has been sunshine. And that's something that you have to do during the dry season if you don't have rains. But more recently, there has been different approaches to industrial scale drying of cassava, including reusing the water content, just by hydraulic, presses, and then finally batch drying. The technology is still evolving, but I'll be happy to kind of connect the person who asked the question. I've actually put my email on the chat. Look for my email, and I can link the person up with those technologies being developed in Southeast Asia and also in Brazil.
Excellent. Thank you very much. So please, if you are the one who raised a question, you can send an email to Martin, or if you send it to me, I'll make sure Martin gets it and he will connect you. We take one last question from Wale's side, and then this event is also being live streamed. It's live on Facebook, and I understand there are some questions at that end, so I'll pass it on to somebody else to help us with those questions. Wale, a final question from your side?
Do we have a model for scaling proven technologies across Africa? If so, what are the tenets of this model? And the following one on that is, how does it address the challenge of access to affordable finance, since most farmers and MSME enterprises lack collateral and have low capital?
Very interesting question. Do we have a model for scaling technologies? I believe one of our third panelists would want to chip in here. So if I would call Jose to give it a try, and then we can see if any other panelist also wants to contribute to that.
Kwesi, I'd like to talk about the models for scaling. Yeah, okay. And because I am somebody who has been excited by what TAT has been able to achieve. So first of all, I'll talk about the criteria for scaling. History has shown us that there are only two ways to scale: either through the private sector, like companies, or government through extension agencies. So if you look at the conditions for scaling, there are three conditions. First of all, government has to be involved. Government needs to drive the agenda. There has to be a clear agenda from government that this is a development priority, and they put their money where their mouth is, invest. Secondly, you need the private sector involved, seed companies especially. Seed companies, both small and big, all kinds of seed companies, they all have to be involved. Thirdly, what I call the ecosystem, the National Agricultural Research and Extension Ecosystem, the International Agricultural Centers, the NARS, the farmer groups, the extension agencies of government, they all have to be involved. And the model we have seen with TAT is as follows. First of all, there is a clear agreement on what new varieties are needed, both market preferred, farmer preferred. It's clear. It has been demonstrated in the field. So the value of demonstration is very important. That's the first. That is an agreement on technology. The second is that somebody has to step into carry some of the risk, the initial risk. For example, production of early generation seeds, because that's where it all starts. The breeders, the foundation seeds, somebody has to step in and carry. It has to be either government, or in our case, we have seen TAT, carrying that. The third is that seed companies have to be trained. Certified seed production is a science. To be able to produce seeds that will germinate 80%, and purity, of more than 95% is a science. So there you need some training for the seed companies, both in the season, before and after the season, to train them. And lastly, and perhaps more importantly, you need delivery mechanisms to the farmers, either through agro dealers or whether through governments, subsidy programs, whatever it is. There has to be a clear delivery mechanism to the farmers. And what that has shown so far, let me just give you two examples: wheat in Sudan and Ethiopia, and maize in Kenya. And that has shown that you can actually reach more than 1 million farmers within 2 seasons. If you are able to bulk up, certified seeds, you are able to, demonstrate to farmers the value of these new varieties, and also you're able to reach them through agro networks. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Martin. This is very, very important. And Wale, I would like you on the chat box, please put in there the email for Martin. You put in there the email for Chris Akem, who is the leader of the program management unit of TAT, as well as the email for Innocent Musandiamana, who is the head of the TAT clearinghouse, so that some of these questions, if people want to engage, they know who they can link up with. I am also informed that we have with us Lawrence Kent. Lawrence is a key partner to TAT. Lawrence is with the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, and the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation supports the clearinghouse of TAT. And I want to put Lawrence on the spot, if Lawrence is still there, just by giving him a minute or two to greet the audience and basically just say, why is BMGF interested in this whole business of TAT and for them supporting the clearinghouse, looking at the private sector engagement in there? Lawrence, can you forgive me as you take this up?
Quincy, thank you for the chance to participate, to listen and learn from all of the presenters. So it's been very rewarding. I thought Martin's final comments there were quite incisive about, we all are seeking impact at scale, but what are the scaling mechanisms? It's got to be either through the private sector or through governments. And I think we have to factor those players in when trying to decide how the technologies that are developed can go to scale and how to facilitate that. But I also think that it's worth mentioning the role of the international financial institutions, because sometimes a government will see an opportunity to promote a technology or to promote, let's say, an enabling environment for a technology. For example, setting up a public-private partnership to produce early generation seed that can then be passed to the private sector to allow them to play their role. But that might take some money to create that entity. And in some cases, governments don't have that money handy. There's a chance for them to then go to the international financial institutions and incorporate requests for financial assistance to the African Development Bank or to the International Financial, the IFAD or the World Bank. But it's good if those opportunities for financing really are connected to programs that have that scaling plan in place. Yes, we're going to borrow from that international financial institution, and we have a good program and a good idea how that money will be used then to put these technologies into play and set the stage for them to go then to the private sector for multiplication, distribution, and sales. So again, I think Martin summed it up well, as did many of the other speakers, but I just wanted to highlight the potential role of the international financial institutions in allowing governments to play their roles. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Lawrence. Thank you. And thanks to the BMGF for the support they are also providing, backing up the support of the Africa Development Bank in this very, very important program. We do have the streaming going on in Facebook. And Cathy Lopez, I'm not sure whether you are the one taking care of those. Do we have any one or two questions from that side before we round up?
I see no, we don't have any questions.
Okay.
Most of the questions are from the chat box.
Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, because of time limitation, you will have to forgive me. We have lots of very good comments and questions that are raised there, but as I said, we will put all this together. We will produce a summary document which will capture all your contributions and all the comments that you have made in there. But at this point, I would want to call on our person from the Auda NEPA. Lawrence, please, can you help to introduce the person who will be giving us the concluding and the key recommendations? Lawrence, please. Sorry, I don't mean Lawrence, I mean Augustin. Augustin, please help us with that.
Yes, thank you very much, Kwesi, and thank you all for the very exciting session, very rich. Ibrahim, are you around to please share a word of closing with us? Thank you.
Yeah, yes, I am around, Augustine, but I thought our colleague Jesse was will do the conclusion from Africa, but I can say something quickly. On my side, really, it has been very, very, very insightful. I've learned a lot from the presentation and from the various speakers. And obviously, I appreciated the macroeconomic, even light analysis done by Martin, the Director of Agriculture at AFDB. So with AFDB, we are working toward setting up a good database of financing solutions for smallholder farmers and for private sector actors at large. So we look forward to finalizing the discussion, because most definitely when we speak to actors of the agriculture sector across the continent, the issue of access to finance is coming over and over and over. So we think that together we need to put, by getting input, of course, from the actors, the right financing mechanism. So the era where we design financing solutions and then we come and dump them on actors of value chains, I think we need to stop. We need to radically change that by having a bottom-up approach, whereby we get input from the actors, so then we design the right financing solutions for them. But it's a discussion that I'm sure we will finalize very soon. And I also definitely enjoyed the various presentation made by Tat. I really see a lot of synergies we can build here together. Across the multi-stakeholder platforms we've set up as Go Africa in African countries. My colleague Wombo has mentioned 16 countries. Really, the issue of quality seeds, fertilizer, herbicide, etc., is coming, has been coming up over and over. So it's something that we can tackle together by opening up to TAT, our multi-stakeholder platforms, and see how we can diffuse those technologies to reach a maximum of actors of those multi-stakeholder platforms. And definitely the issue of like aquaculture, it's, I mean, when we went to Seychelles and Sierra Leone, it has been brought up by government as a priority. The issue of livestock here in Southern Africa, the government has approached us in South Africa so that we can help them to develop a regional beef value chain from Namibia to South Africa all the way to Mozambique. Not to Mozambique, Botswana, sorry. So really there's a synergy we can build it here. But I mean, the presentation by IITA, also it's something we need to see how we can build synergies with IITA. It's impressive that through this business model, they've managed to increase soybean yield. It is quite impressive. So let's see how we can also work together. That was the aim of this webinar, to get to know each other, to learn more about each other, and to see how we can work together. But what's definitely the presentation made by Sahel Consulting is very impressive. This platform called Nourishing Africa, it's something we need to take beyond Nigeria. I think it has been tested now, it's working. So let's see how we can take it beyond Nigeria and building synergies with our friends from Van East. As the CEO of Van East has said, Tunde, we have signed a term sheet with Van East, so we are accompanying Van East to raise the capital that they need to expand their activities. So definitely, it was a very good session for me, at least, and I hope for all of you. And Kwesi, I think as we develop this MOU and with various activities in annual work plans, we should see how we can establish as an activity a platform where we can regularly share knowledge, information, insight, so we get to know each other better beyond this platform, and other actors are, there's a vacuum today. So I think this platform we would put together should be able to bring, because today in Africa, there's a multitude of actors in the agricultural sector doing this and that at various impact. So if we can find a platform to bring them together for at least a knowledge sharing purposes and beyond, I think it will help most definitely. Let me end here by saying thank you to all of you for your participation. It has been a great, really a great session, and I look forward to continuing in that same vein. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Ibrahim. And it's been great working with Grow Africa and with the Outer NEPAD group in this particular venture. Let me now call on Innocent Musabiamana, who is the head of the TAT Clearinghouse, to also make some closing remarks. Innocent, if you are there, can you take it up, please?
Thank you very much, Kwesi. I will start. Mine will be just a word of thanks. A word of thanks, especially to our keynote speakers, our panelists, and especially to you, Kwesi and Agustin. A lot of efforts you have put in to make this event very, very successful. Successful in the sense that it was very informative, insightful. Now that we all have been discussing on the role of private sector in technology generation and the scaling, we shared with from our panelists a number of models that are working, being the business incubation model that is being piloted by IITA, the Ndindi, NARA, the model that we are implementing within the TATS program. Models are there. And what we need to do, I just want to repeat what Martin said at the beginning. We don't have actually time. There's no more time. There's no excuse. We need to do it. We must do it. Because these models are there, the technologies are there, and all these narratives that have been there for African continents in terms of low productivity, food insecurity, malnutrition, and now recently with the impact of COVID pandemic, adding on to already existing but impact of climate change. So we really need to do something. And we have already some examples that things are happening. So just one example that triggered me all the time, I think I picked on one of the webinar, whereby I was saying, if you pick example of land under maize on the, in the United States, the same land produced on the continent, 350 million hectares of maize. But guess what? The production out of the two equal land production, one is producing 400 millions of tons, while on our continent, we are still 60 millions. That's, we have all solutions, we have all these models that are working, especially through this sustainable model whereby we bring together the private sector, the government, support with all this development organization, the bank, BMGF, European Union. So we needed to make this at a scale, because what we need now is to get these solutions, this technology to the hands of millions of farmers and to make at a scale. And we have already examples, just a very quick example that Martin was referring to, especially on wheat. By only within 2 years, working with government, private seed companies, through extension system within the country, local partners through that model. So Sudan were able to come from 24% self-reliant in terms of wheat to 50% of self-reliant in terms of production of wheat. Only through this mode of partnership, by accessing quality, high yield varieties wheat, especially the heat tolerant and drought tolerant variety. So we have this model, we have this example that things are happening and having impact. You can't even, if you translate on these economic models, the impact in terms of all these import bills, the impact on poverty reduction, it is marvelous. So it is possible. So let's join hands, and it is possible through this webinar. It was very clear that the private sector is the way to go in a sustainable manner. We will take this technology to scale. We'll reach more millions of farmers by partnering around this proven technology, so that we can really transform in a real term African agriculture on the continent. So I only wanted to really please and thank all panelists and participants. All your comments were recorded. We are going to come back to you with all details. We have recorded the emails, so we'll make a follow-up. So as my colleague from Audo said, from this webinar, we just make a follow-up meetings. Just come up with a clear roadmap, how we are going to achieve through a very strong partnership through these models so that we can reach millions of farmers of the continent. So once again, thank you, and Kwesi and colleagues, thank you for making this a success.
Thank you very much, Innocent. Thank you for those wonderful words. Colleagues, I'll now ask you to turn on your videos and look at the right top hand corner of your screen. You will see the gallery view. I'd like you to click on your gallery view and please turn on your videos, all of you. We want to take some pictures. So turn on your videos so we can capture some pictures. Please turn on your videos. We still have about 100 people who are survivors. So give us a second. I'm sure my colleagues. Very good. I see Abdullahi Jalab. Abdullahi, I didn't know you were there. Now I've seen you. I see Bernadette. I'm still taking. Please turn on your videos. I see a lot of black spaces where the videos are still not on.
We do high five?
Yeah, but we still have too many spots without the videos being turned on. People don't want to turn on their videos. Don't worry, it doesn't matter how you are looking now. It's still okay. You're all looking great. Okay. All right. I think we may have to declare victory. I don't know whether the screen, the problem is my side, but I'm not getting all your faces. But let me just say thank you to everybody. We promise that you will be hearing back from us. We will definitely link up with all of you, those who have put down their names and those who registered, so that we will all see what the next steps are going to be. This is a first in the series, so we will let you know what comes up next. And with that, I want to thank the Africa Union Development Agency, AUDA NEPAD, and Grow Africa. Thank the Augustin and Ibrahim, who have been really strong partners in making this thing work. And also to thank all the people working in the background, the communication team of IITA, Cathy Lopez and her team. They've done marvelously well in supporting this initiative. And I want to thank the Africa Development Bank, led by Martin at this meeting, and also the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, led by Lawrence at this meeting. Thank you all very much, and I wish you all the best, and you would hear from us. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
It's funny how your faces did not show up, but at least for some of them, I was able to. Very good. So good to see all of you, and have a wonderful weekend coming. Tomorrow, you still have tomorrow, but after tomorrow, you have the weekend.
You're anxious that weekend, Kwesi.
Yeah, we have to get a weekend, and get a bit of rest also. this is a nice page. Very good, very good. I've got a beautiful page here. Yeah. Atayi, I see you now, and I hadn't realized you were there. And I see Toyin and David Ojo. Thank you all very much for coming. Kati Lopez, Omodolapo, thank you all for coming. So, ladies and gentlemen, the meeting has ended. Feel free to leave. If you want to stay, you are welcome to stay, but we will shut you off very soon. Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye.
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 Bye-bye, everybody. Thanks very much.
Have a good day, everybody.